Welcome to Unit 4 of our microeconomics part of the syllabus. In this particular unit, we discuss market structures. The aim is just to introduce us to the understanding of different types of market structures. And in our syllabus, we do study 4 different types of market structures. That is the perfect competition market structure, monopoly market structure, monopolistic market structure, and oligopoly market structure. So let me just run through these market structures as quickly as we can. But before we do that, let's look at our basis of assessment. Basis of assessment or basis of analysis. When we are analyzing market structures, there are 3 basic things we need to look at. Number 1, we look at the structure itself. So what's the structure? The structure, we talk about the number of producers that exist in that particular industry. Number 2, we also analyze the conduct of firms in those different industries. Here we are looking at how individual firms act to gain revenue and profits. Then the third thing, we look at the performance of those firms in the different market structures, and under performance we refer to the firm's effectiveness in solving economic problems. Now, performance looks at 3 things as well. Under performance, we look at the productive efficiency of the firms or the technical efficiency of the firms. This looks at how well the firms use resources, how well the firms are using the resources or limited resources. Second thing that we look at under performance analysis, we look at the exchange efficiency of the firms. Here we consider whether the prices that are charged in that particular market structures are fair. Whether the prices that are charged are fair. Exchange efficiency is also called the allocative efficiency. The third thing we look at under performance analysis is the market stability, whether the market structure exhibits stable prices. So when we talk about productive efficiency and exchange efficiency, what exactly are we referring to? Productive efficiency or technical efficiency looks at whether the firms are minimizing the average cost, and this we look at the point or level of output where marginal cost equals to the average cost. Remember, we linked that marginal cost cuts average cost at the minimum point of average cost. So where marginal cost equals average cost, it means that the firm has reached the minimum of its expenses, its costs, or the firm is efficient in the use of the resources. Allocative efficiency or exchange efficiency refers to whether the firm is charging a fair price or not. And what can we call the fair price? Is the price that equals to the marginal cost that is incurred by the firm in producing the extra unit of output. So this is the point of or level of output where marginal cost equals average cost, where marginal cost equals average cost. Here, the price is said to be equals to the marginal cost, and that is considered to be a fair price. What is the price? When we talk about MC equals to AR and charging fair prices, we just mean that the price is reflecting the value to the consumer. The price reflects the value to the consumer. Then marginal cost, we know what marginal cost is. So marginal cost is the extra cost incurred by a firm in producing an extra unit of a product. So let's run through the 4 different market structures, looking at the structure itself and considering the conduct of the firms, how individual firms act in gaining revenue and profits, and also looking at the performance analysis. So structure. The characteristics of a perfect competition market structure is that we have a large number of producers in perfect competition market structures, and the firms in those market structures are price takers. So no particular firm has got power to set the prices. The prices are set by market forces. So firms and buyers are price takers. Producers and consumers have the same perfect information about the products and the market. There are no transport costs or information gathering costs under perfect market structure. The product that is produced under the perfect market structure is homogeneous. The product is just the same, and there are no barriers to entry under this particular market structure. Now let's look at the graph. Now, because there are no barriers to entry in this particular market structure, it simply means that firms can make supernormal profits in the short run, but firms cannot sustain the supernormal profits because of new entrants into the industry. What can prevent a firm from sustaining the supernormal profits is when there are no barriers to entry. So no barriers to entry means that other firms or entrepreneurs are able to enter the industry, and when that happens, supply is going to increase. And what is expected when supply increases is that demand for a particular firm will fall and prices will go down, and so firms will not be making the supernormal profits in the long run. They will just be making normal profits in the long run. So that's actually what differentiates perfect competition market structure from the monopoly market structure, because under the monopoly we have strong barriers, very strong barriers to entry, and that's what helps monopolies to sustain the supernormal profits in the long run. So let's look at the equilibrium graphs for perfect competition market structure. In the short run, we've said the firms under this market structure will make supernormal profits. So how do we judge the supernormal profits? Supernormal profits happens if at the profit maximization point, the average revenue is greater than the average cost. So we have a supernormal profits if average revenue at profit maximization is greater than average cost at that point of profit maximization level. So average revenue greater than average cost. So what is the profit maximization level? The profit maximization level is a point where MC equals MR. We did this in our previous study. Profit maximization point is where MR equals MC. That's the profit maximization point. So what you need to do in this graph, first of all, you need to know how to plot the graph. You need to know how to put up this graph. But what you need to do to assess the performance of firms under perfect competition market structure is you first of all have to go to the point where MR equals to MC. So go to that point where MR equals to MC, and this is our MC. This other line is our MR. So where MR equals to MC, that's the point, and that point means that's the level of profit maximization for this particular firm. So along this line we have profit maximization level of output. So we look at that line and then we compare AR to AC. AR to AC. AC curve is this one, which is written ATC. That's the average total cost. That's the AC line. So along this line we have AC that cuts this line at that point. I hope you are able to see there at that point. So we have our AC along the profit maximization line at that point. AR is at that point. So you notice that along the profit maximization line here, or level of output, our AR, average revenue, is greater than our AC, and that means the firm is making supernormal profits. So the supernormal profit gap is the point where AR intersects the profit maximization line. That's the point there, and the point where AC intersects the profit maximization line. So we have this gap here. That gap means supernormal profits area. Again, you see, so because of lack of barriers to entry, when other entrepreneurs notices that the firms are making supernormal profits, there will be new entrants into the industry, and supply is going to increase. When supply increases, prices will fall, and individual firms' demand will also fall. If the average cost remains the same, it would happen that firms in the perfect market structure may go from making supernormal profits to making losses. So let's show the short run graph for loss. The short line graph for loss is average revenue has fallen, demand has fallen, but the average cost remains the same. So our profit maximization point, the point where MC equals to MR, this is our MC line, and that's our MR line is that point. That's a profit maximization point. Along this profit maximization level, you will notice that the average revenue is now less than the average cost. So what we have there, if at the profit maximization point, MC equals to MR, that's the profit maximization point. If at that profit maximization point, we have our average revenue less than our average average costs. Average revenue less than our average cost, it means that the firms are making losses. This is equal to a loss. If at the profit maximization level output, our average revenue is less than our average cost, it means that the firm are making losses. So let's look at our profit maximization point once again. That's the point where MC equals MR, and that's the point there. So if this is the point of profit maximization, along this level of output, we see that the ATC is above the AR. ATC is above the AR, so the firm is making losses. In our previous the graph that we looked at a few moments ago, this is the graph for supernormal profits. We went to the profit maximization point, which is MC equals to MR, and that's the point we identified, and that is the line or level of profit maximization. And along that line, we discovered that AR was greater than AC, so this result means that firms are making supernormal profits. So that's the supernormal profit part, or abnormal profits. So when firms begin to make losses here again, there is no barrier to entry, there is no barrier to exit, so some firms cannot continue to we will not accept a situation where they continue to make losses over a longer period of time. So some firms will exit the industry, and that will make supply shift leftwards. There will be a reduction in supply, prices will go up, demand will go up a bit. So what we expect to happen in the long run is that firms will be making normal profits. So what we mean by normal profits, we will look at the profit maximization level. If at that point AR equals AC, that means the firm are making normal profits. So that's the normal profits area. Normal profits. So firms will be making normal profits in the long run. So that's the first market structure. So what you need to know here is the characteristics or the structure itself. We know that the firms are profit maximizers, and you have to know how to do the graphs for the short run and the long run graphs. And the key points you need to explain here is supernormal profits area, loss, and the normal profits. So in the short run, firms under perfect competitive market structure will make super normal profits in the short run and losses in the short run. but in the long run, firms will only make normal profits. Are the firms efficient? The answers are yes, the firms are efficient. Why? Because if you look at this graph, you will discover that the firm is reaching its technical efficiency level. That's the level where MC equals to AC. Its technical efficiency level is reached before the profit maximization level is reached. Allocative efficiency level is where MC equals to AR. Allocative efficiency level is reached right at the point where the firm is reaching profit maximization level. So we conclude the firms are efficient. If you come to the long run graph, you see that technical efficiency level is reached right at the point where the firm is reaching, maximizing its profits, and the allocative efficiency is reached at that point. So that's about the perfect competitive market structure. Let's move on to monopoly. The characteristics of monopoly is that under the monopoly market structure, we only have one single supplier, and that particular firm is a price maker. So the firm increases or reduces the prices for it to be able to increase its demand levels. There are no close substitutes for the product that is produced, so the product is quite unique under monopoly, and there are strong barriers to entry under monopoly. So meaning that even where other entrepreneurs are enticed by the supernormal profits that are made by the monopoly firm, they cannot participate in that industry because of the barriers to entry. And this is the major reason why a monopoly firm will sustain supernormal profits over a longer period of time. So the graph for monopoly is that we have a down sloping marginal revenue line and the down sloping demand curve there. Again, we have to look at the profit maximization level and compare AC to AR. If AR is greater than AC, then we conclude that the firm is making supernormal profits. So where is the profit maximization point? This is the point where MC equals to MR, and we discover that's the point. That's the profit maximization level of output. Along this profit maximization level of output, we look at the positioning of AC. AC is there, AR is up there. So we see that AR is above the AC. And so this area shown here is the profit, is the supernormal profit area for a monopoly firm. Now, there is no short run or long run. There is no short run and long run different graphs for monopoly. It's the same graph that you use for short run. Same graph is used for the long run period because a monopoly sustains the supernormal profits. So there will be no changes in the graph. Now, the question is, are monopoly firms efficient? Let's look at the technical efficiency point. The technical efficiency point is a point where MC cuts AC. So that's the technical efficiency point we have there. That's the technical efficiency point. So the firm is maximizing its profits even before reaching the technical efficiency point. So we conclude this firm is not efficient because the firm is not going to strive to minimize costs if they are able to maximize profits even before minimizing the costs. Let's look at the allocative efficiency point. Allocative efficiency point is a point where MC equals to AR. So allocative efficiency point is there. You notice again that the firm is able to maximize its profit even before reaching the allocative efficiency point, which is that point there. And so we conclude that monopoly firms are inefficient. So some of the examples of barriers to entry includes product differentiation barrier and absolute cost barrier, economies of scale barrier, and legal barrier. Probably here the legal barrier will be the strongest barrier to all barriers to entry. Let's look at monopolistic market structure. Monopolistic market structure, the characteristics are as follows. Number one, we've got many firms there, but not as many as compared to a perfect competitive market structure. Here there are no significant barriers to entry, so the barriers are so weak, and if the barriers are weak, it means that the firm cannot sustain the supernormal profits in the long run. The firms use product differentiation as a basis for competition, and the firms, of course, try to avoid competing based on prices. Let's go to the short run graphs for monopolistic. Short run graph for monopolistic is that the monopolistic firm can make supernormal profits in the short run. Of course, the graph looks exactly like the monopoly graph. Monopolistic firm make supernormal profits in the short run, but the firms cannot sustain the supernormal profits in the long run because of lack of barriers to entry. So in the long run, the firm make normal profits. Remember, we said normal profits means that at the profit maximization point, your ARR must be equals to your AC at the profit maximization point. Here, supernormal profits at the profit maximization point, your AC must be below your ARR, or your ARR must be greater than your AC, as we can see in that graph. Here, profit maximization point is where MC equals to MRR, and that's the point. So along that profit maximization point, we have AC equals to ARR. So it means that firms will be making normal profits. The other question is, are the firms, monopolistic firms, efficient or not? These firms are inefficient because the firms are able to achieve profit maximization level even before achieving the technical efficiency level and the allocative efficiency level. So we conclude the firms are inefficient. Let's look at the last one of the market structures. And that's oligopoly. Characteristics of the oligopoly market structure is that there we have few large firms that dominate the market, and these firms have got a behavioral relationship. That means they take each other's response into account when setting the prices and output. A good example of oligopoly market structure here in Zambia is the telecommunication industry, where we have only three big players in the telecommunication industry, and you've noticed the behavioral relationship in that industry. The size of the firms, because they are large firms, size of the firms acts as a barrier to entry, and this is what is referred to as the cost barrier. Now, because the barriers under oligopoly market structures are strong, it means that oligopoly firms can sustain the supernormal profits in the long run. Product differentiation is one of the barriers, of course, because the product is usually homogeneous, but firms try to use product differentiation, sugarcoating the products in order to entice customers. And firms there exhibit both price and non-price competitions. Firm production decisions are interdependent, and of course that relates to the behavioral relationship of the firms. Now, under oligopoly, because you have few large firms that dominate the industry, price cartels are a possibility, meaning that firms can agree or collude to set the prices and limit production levels in order to force the market prices to go up. I should mention here that price cartels are illegal. It's not allowed, but it's some of the things that firms under oligopoly market structure do, more especially if the firms are able to agree and accept the conditions set by themselves. A price cartel can work, even though it's illegal. Now, under oligopoly, price leadership simply means that one particular firm starts to reduce the prices, but that will result in price wars. When one firm reduces the price, other firms will fear to lose their customers, and so they'll reduce the prices, and firms may keep on reducing the prices like that. That's why oligopoly firms tend to avoid competition based on prices. And the last one is state involvement. Now let's look at the graph Again, we don't have two different graphs for short run and long run under oligopoly. We only have one graph that you do for short run and long run. Why? Because monopolies can sustain supernormal profits. But the graph of a monopoly is quite interesting. It's kinked demand curve that we have, the kinked demand curve. And this implies that there are two demand curves that we see here, the elastic demand curve and the inelastic demand curve. Prices below the market price means that demand is going to be inelastic, because no particular firm would wish to reduce the prices below the market price. And if any firm tries to increase the price above the market price, that firm will lose its clients instantly. So there is elastic demand above the market price. That will result in elastic demand. So we have elastic demand on top and inelastic demand down here. So this line, the curve there, represents MC. That curve is MC, and the curve here is also MC. So we have MC1 and MC2. This is demand and average revenue, and that's marginal revenue line, which starts from there and continues here. Now, what this graph means is that oligopoly firms can make supernormal profits and can maximize profits over a range of prices. So oligopoly firms can maximize their profits over a range of prices. So we don't have one particular price at which the firms are maximizing profit. Profit maximization level is over a range of prices. So from that price level to that price level, the firms can maximize profits on those levels. These firms make supernormal profits, and they are able to sustain supernormal profits in the long run. So this brings us to the last market structure, oligopoly. So we've gone through the four market structures, and that's perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic, and oligopoly market structure. The other market structure that is not discussed in this book, just to say something about it, is called monopsony. Monopsony structure is a kind of market structure where we have many suppliers but only one big buyer, only one big buyer, only one big customer that sustains the entire industry. That type of market structure is called monopsony. Thank you for sparing some time to listen to me. Please take care of yourself and keep on studying.